1. Which organization is responsible for issuing the General Radiotelephone Operator License, GROL, in the United States? A. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. B. Federal Communications Commission, FCC. C. National Telecommunications and Information Administration, NTIA. D. Department of Defense, DoD. 2. What is the primary purpose of the GROL? A. To authorize amateur radio operation. B. To authorize marine and aviation radio operation. C. To authorize operation and maintenance of radio transmitters. D. To authorize cable television operation. 3. Which frequency band is considered part of the very high frequency VHF spectrum? A. 3 to 30 MHz. B. 30 to 300 MHz. C. 300 to 3000 MHz. D. 3000 to 30,000 MHz. 4. Which law governs radio frequency spectrum allocation in the U.S.? A. Telecommunications Act of 1996. B. Communications Act of 1934. C. Radio Communications Act of 1980. D. Federal Spectrum Act of 2002. 5. What does the term modulation refer to in radio communications? A. Filtering of unwanted signals. B. Varying a carrier wave to transmit information. C. Detecting signals from space. D. Amplifying a weak signal. 6. What is the function of an antenna tuner? A. Converts AM to FM signals. B. Matches antenna impedance to the transmitter. C. Filters unwanted harmonics. D. Increases transmitted power. 7. Which type of modulation is primarily used in standard AM broadcasting? A. Amplitude modulation. B. Frequency modulation. C. Phase modulation. D. Pulse modulation. 8. What is the main purpose of a super heterodyne receiver? A. Amplify the incoming signal only. B. Convert received frequencies to a fixed intermediate frequency. C. Transmit signals at higher power. D. Eliminate frequency drift in oscillators. 9. What is the definition of bandwidth in radio communication? A. The highest frequency of a signal. B. The lowest frequency of a signal. C. The difference between upper and lower frequencies of a signal. D. The power of the transmitted wave. 10. What does SWR, standing wave ratio, measure? A. Efficiency of a power supply. B. Ratio of transmitted to reflected power in an antenna system. C. Frequency stability of a transmitter. D. Output modulation level. 11. What is the typical frequency range of the HF band? A. 3 to 30 kHz. B. 30 to 300 kHz. C. 3 to 30 MHz. E. 300 to 3000 MHz. 12. Which component in a transmitter generates the carrier frequency? A. Oscillator. B. Amplifier. C. Filter. D. Rectifier. 13. What is the primary function of a frequency multiplier? A. Reduce harmonic distortion. B. Increase output power. C. Multiply an input frequency to a higher harmonic. D. Convert AC to DC. 14. What does the abbreviation EMI stand for in radio communications? A. Electromagnetic interaction. B. Electromagnetic interference. C. Electrical magnetic induction. D. Electronic multiplexing integration. 15. Which safety precaution is most important when working around RF transmitters? A. Wearing insulating gloves. B. Avoiding exposure to high RF radiation. C. Keeping all equipment grounded to prevent oscillation. D. Using short coaxial cables. 16. Which frequency range is assigned to UHF? A. 30 to 300 megahertz. B. 300 to 3000 megahertz. C. 3 to 30 megahertz. D. 3000 to 3000 megahertz. 17. What is the purpose of a low-pass filter in a transmitter? A. To remove unwanted harmonic frequencies. B. To increase transmission speed. C. To amplify weak signals. D. To stabilize the oscillator. 18. What is the significance of the decibel, dB unit in radio communications? A. It measures time delay. B. It expresses ratios of power or voltage on a logarithmic scale. C. It measures distance between stations. It defines frequency intervals. 19. Which component in a radio receiver separates audio signals from the RF carrier? A. Oscillator. B. Detector. C. Modulator. D. Amplifier. 20. Which type of transmission line is most commonly used for VHF and UHF systems? A. Twin lead. B. Open wire line. C. Coaxial cable. D. Waveguide. 21. Which of the following describes skip distance in HF propagation? A. The distance a signal travels directly without reflection. B. The shortest distance from the transmitter where a skywave returns to Earth. C. The distance between transmitting and receiving antennas. D. The length of a quarter-wave antenna. 22. What is the purpose of automatic gain control, AGC, in receivers? A. To increase transmitter efficiency. E. To maintain constant audio output despite signal strength variations. C. To adjust modulation depth. D. To stabilize frequency. 23. Which emission designation corresponds to standard AM voice transmission? A. F3E. B. A3E. C. J3E. D. G1D. 24. Which device prevents transmitter spurious emissions from entering the antenna system? A. Oscillator. B. Filter. C. Amplifier. D. Rectifier. 25. What is the maximum legal power output for marine MF-HF transmitters in the U.S.? A. 25 watts. B. 60 watts. C. 150 watts. D. 400 watts. 26. What is the velocity factor of a transmission line? A. Ratio of signal speed in the line compared to speed of light in vacuum. B. Efficiency rating of a coaxial cable. C. Ratio of input to output impedance. D. Rate of current flow in the conductor. 27. What is the purpose of frequency modulation, FM, in radio systems? A. Varying amplitude of the carrier. B. Varying frequency of the carrier to convey information. C. Varying phase of the carrier. D. Reducing antenna length. 28. Which circuit is responsible for converting AC to DC in power supplies? A. Amplifier. B. Filter. C. Rectifier. D. Oscillator. 29. Which international organization regulates radio frequency spectrum globally? A. International Telecommunication Union, ITU. B. Federal Communications Commission, FCC. C. United Nations, UN. D. Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEEE. 30. Which characteristic determines the directivity of an antenna? A. Bandwidth. B. Gain pattern. C. Impedance. D. Frequency range. 31. What is the typical wavelength of a 30 MHz signal? A. 10 meters. B. 20 meters. C. 30 meters. D. 40 meters. 32. Which propagation mode allows VHF signals to travel beyond the horizon under certain conditions? A. Ground wave. B. Skywave. C. Tropospheric ducting. D. Direct line of sight. 33. Which electronic device is used to amplify weak RF signals at the receiver input? A. Power amplifier. B. RF preamplifier. C. Oscillator. D. Detector. 34. Which hazard is associated with high voltage power supplies in transmitters? A. RF burns. B. Electrical shock. C. Acoustic noise. D. Magnetic field distortion. 35. Which modulation type is used in single sideband SSB transmissions? A. J3E. B. A3. C. F3E. D. H3E. 36. What is the significance of the intermediate frequency, IF, in superheterodyne receivers? It ensures frequency stability and selectivity. B. It increases transmission efficiency. C. It reduces antenna size. D. It increases output power.